Welcome to the Batman on Film blog. I am your host, as well as the founder and editor-in-chief of Batman on Film, Jett Ramey. And with me today to talk some DC on film, future, past, whatever. We're gonna discuss
anything but the present.
Yeah, there's some major stuff went down. From fanboy.com, Mario Francisco Robles. How you doing today, sir?
I'm doing all right, brother Bill. I'm happy to be back on another Batman on Film blog.
Yeah, so let's talk about the report in Variety that dropped yesterday by Brett Lang that says that John Berg and Jeff Johns will have new roles within Warner Brothers. Basically, Mr. Berg is going back to producing for the studio, I believe, is the way it was written, and but producing non-DC films. And Jeff Johns remains one of the heads of DC Entertainment and will not be as actively involved with the film part any longer. So what's your thoughts on that?
To me, honestly, that report was like a whole lot of nothing. I mean, the headline was so like attention grabbing. I'm like, oh my God, DC shakeups from Variety. This is going to be a blockbuster report. And ultimately, the only actual news that came out of it is that John Berg is, moving to a different place and Jeff Johns is going to be an advisor. But the thing is, to me, those are nothing burgers because even the report itself points out that John Berg had approached Toby Emmerich 6 months ago about making this switch. This predates Justice League. This was a move that was just going to happen anyway.
Do you think that could be just lip service and PR?
See, honestly, there was always sort of a ticking clock on Berg anyway, because he came on as part of Affleck's rise to power within DC. Yeah. He was sort of an Affleck guy, if you look at some of the history of how Berg even got involved with this. So with Affleck transitioning his way out, it was always just assumed that Berg was going to be leaving too. So to me, this is one of those moves that is just there to look like we hear you and we're doing something. We're on the case, but nothing's really happening. And even the Johns thing, where they say he's going to be an advisor now, I honestly think that's all he was ever fully intended to be, a really high-ranking advisor whose voice really matters, but just an advisor. Because the reason this sounds like news is there were people who thought that he was going to be like the Kevin Feige. He was going to be the guy who oversees the entire DC Films universe. But the thing is, you and I both know, they're going for a filmmaker-driven approach, not a producer-driven approach. And in that approach, there's no space for a guy like a Kevin Feige. Yeah. So Jeff Johns was never going to be the master architect who all the other directors have to listen to, and this is the direction we're going in. He was never going to be that guy. He was always going to be ultimately just a consultant for all things DC Comics, to look over the scripts, to make sure that it respects the mythology, to make sure it respects the tone that they want these films to have, more or less. But in general, he's just there to offer notes and nudge you in the right direction. He's not there to tell you how to do things. Yeah. So for me, hearing he's an advisor now, I'm like, well, that's kind of what he was always going to be anyway. Yeah,
he was. His role expanded after BVS. Yes. He was more actively involved in Justice League, and of course, he was involved fairly significantly in Wonder Woman.
Yeah, and that's why they can't really punish the guy. How stupid would they have to be to punish the guy who helped creatively oversee their greatest success? They've been saying Wonder Woman is going to be the template for the DC Films universe moving forward, and he was very hands-on with that project. So you can't punish him.
Are they scapegoating these guys?
Absolutely.
Or well, yeah, I mean, it didn't come, like you said, it didn't come off like, ooh, they're out, they're gone, but at the same time, it seems like they're kind of tossing or publicly trying to toss some blame.
I think they're publicly just trying to rearrange the furniture so it looks like they're doing something. I don't think they're actually in any sort of doghouse. Something that the Variety report sort of mentioned, which I thought was a mischaracterization, was that they were intimately involved with Justice League. And it's like, yes, okay, they did become intimately involved, but that wasn't until the train had already left the station. You know what I mean? Yeah. They weren't there for the conceptualization of that film, for the initial draft of the script of that film. They're not the ones who gave it the green light. They came into power later on, especially Geoff Johns, who didn't join till like July. And the film had been going, principal photography had begun in April. Mm-hmm. So the way Variety tries to just say like, yeah, these guys are responsible for Justice League, the whole thing just seems like some sort of weird PR attempt to make it seem like we're trying to address your concerns, when in reality, it's not true.
But they've got to do something different. They have. They can't just continue beating this dead horse.
Yeah.
They just can't. They can't continue status quo. And I think they were setting up that approach as far back as when Geoff Johns and Diane Nelson spoke with Abraham Reisman with Vulture and that whole piece. They said, we're going to move away, or we're not going to what was the word they used? Focus on the shared universe.
Yeah, we're going to loosen the connectivity.
Yeah, there will be one, but it will not be overt, and we're going to go with the films will be filmmaker driven, and we'll really rely on the filmmakers we choose for these projects. So. And we've talked about this before, and that brings up the problem of if you're going to, it's like they want their cake and eat it too. Still, no matter what, no matter the fiasco that came to be, it was like this. It was like this boil that was just horrible, and it get growing, and finally, boom! It's exploded, and the explosion was Justice League, Yeah, that's kind of a gross analogy, but I mean, sometimes when I'm thinking about what they've done the last 4 years with DC on film is gross. But they can't continue on. Is my whole point. They're even though the article may be, this is not huge news, and especially if you've been paying attention, you knew this was taking place, but they've got to be making some significant changes besides just shuffling around these two producers or these two gentlemen over at Warner Bros. Don't you think?
See, honestly, I think the film, the changes they're making are the very same ones that they already mentioned in the Vulture piece. And I think, unlike you, I think that actually is the solution to this mess.
Yeah.
So in terms of, I think they are going to just do exactly what they said in the Vulture piece. I think we're going to get several years of phenomenal solo films. And then in like 2020, 3 years from now, is when we'll get the Flashpoint movie, which would attempt to sort of reset certain things. And then we go back to another few years of solo movies. And I do think that can work. I really do. So I don't think anything has changed since the Vulture report. I think that is still the plan moving forward. There was nothing about the Variety piece that made it sound like they're shaking up their fundamental philosophy on how to proceed from here. So I think they're going to do the solo films. They're going to loosen up how connected these things are. There'll be another team-up movie in 3 years, and then who knows, a Justice League 2 another 2 or 3 years after that. I really think that they knew remember, you and I have discussed this.
Yes.
They knew that Justice League was going to be a problem. They didn't know how big of a problem, but to a certain extent, they knew that things had to change. So what they discussed in that Vulture report from 2 months ago now, whenever that was, I believe that has been the plan, ever since Johns and Berg and Nelson sort of put their heads together.
They were planning for the inevitable.
Yeah. And I just think they're sticking to that. I don't think that anything's really changed from the Vulture report. In short, that's my take on it.
Yeah, and I would let me say this, and I would like to get your take. It's how do you trot out, or how do you throw out another Justice League film when people didn't show up for this one? And that's my issue with this Flashpoint concept. And I wrote an article yesterday on Batman on Film. It seems like they want to try to use it as a reboot mechanism, or at least a soft reboot mechanism. And if you're going to do that, okay, I mean, the whole idea, I love the comic, I love the Batman Flashpoint, and I liked the Flash TV show's version of Flashpoint. I thought it was all cool. And when they announced Flashpoint at Comic-Con last year, I said, first thing I thought was, oh, this is how they're going to reboot it. That's a cool idea. And then Justice League comes out, and I'm thinking, okay, how are you gonna sell this? No one's seen the general audience did not come out for this film. That's why the box office is where it's at. It did not get reviewed well. Fans, I mean, the general audience that did see it was a B+ on CinemaScore, which is okay, above average, and like myself, who's a fan, was just like, it's okay, but I can't see from a business standpoint of trying to sell this or do this film when its predecessor was unsuccessful, and there's some stink on it, I believe.
There is some stink on it, but I think the only way it's a terrible idea is if they accelerate it. If they try to make it like, all right, let's try to get this Flashpoint thing out as soon as possible so we could do the reboot thing, then it's a huge mistake, because then you really are giving people more of the same, and they're gonna shrug at that. Mm-hmm. But if they do the long game, and we get 2-3 years now of really strong solo movies that help rehabilitate the DC film brand, then you get to the Flashpoint, I think that could work. I do. I think, if Aquaman is great, if Wonder Woman 2 is great, if we get that Man of Steel 2 I've been hearing about, and that's great, if people love Shazam, and all of a sudden now in 2020 is when there's going to be a Flashpoint movie which has that Flash that everyone liked, because a lot of people liked Ezra Miller's Flash. If you do this right and you play the long game, I don't think Flashpoint is going to be more of the same. I think audiences will take it like, I like DC again, and I want to see what they're going to do. There's time travel. What's going on here? Like, I think they could make the Flashpoint concept work, as long as they don't rush it. As long as the soonest we're seeing it is in 2020, I think it'll work. Is
2020 too soon? I mean, that's 2 years. We're almost at 2018.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, maybe. See, it's hard. It's hard because fans have already shown that they're willing to overlook DC's missteps. They did that with Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman came out after 2 consecutive films that were like head scratchers in Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, and it did amazingly well.
Yeah.
So as long as people see that this is a movie that looks really, really good and seems like a break from what we've seen before, they'll show up. You know what I mean? Like, Wonder Woman is proof of that. The issue with Justice League was it looked a lot like Batman v Superman, because it's that Snyder aesthetic, and you have Affleck in the suit, and people know that this is a follow-up to Batman v Superman. So if you didn't like Batman v Superman, Justice League wasn't doing it for you.
Yeah.
And on top of that, they showed that villain, Steppenwolf, and Steppenwolf reminds you of the worst part of Wonder Woman. Because what's the part of Wonder Woman that even the people who loved it hate? Everyone hated Ares in the third act.
Ares, yeah.
Yeah, so when they're marketing Justice League, it looks like Batman v Superman with Wonder Woman's third act. It's a nightmare to sell that. You know? So I feel like if you get a few good movies that are just, are great and they look intriguing and they stand on their own 2 feet and they get you reinvested in these characters the way Wonder Woman did for Gal Gadot's version of the character, I think people will buy back in. I really do. Maybe I'm an optimist.
You're a little more optimistic than me. I would say my argument against that would be Wonder Woman was a huge hit and everyone loved it, and that wasn't, her being in Justice League wasn't enough to get people out.
Yes.
There was something that kept folks
but that something, I think, were the trailers and the fact that this looks like a return to BVS. Yeah. It looks like, so you're surrounding her with all that same sort of Zack Snyder-y, BVS, over-stylized, grim, dark nonsense, and you're having them fight another one of these big horned, armored CG villains that we're all tired of. I honestly think it was the movie she was in. That's my theory. I think we all just sort of like simplistically assumed that since she's such a big deal right now, that putting her front and center would sell tickets. But I think the movie around her really dragged the appeal way, way down.
Yes, I agree with that on a certain point. Now, conversely, does Justice League, does that put a stink on Wonder Woman 2 and Aquaman?
See, I don't know. See, I was intrigued by the fact that even despite this sort of negative, sort of dark cloud hovering over things, Warner Brothers released that shot of Aquaman yesterday. And you've got James Wan now already starting to promote it, and we're a year away from it. I really do feel like Warner Brothers is planning to stay the course here. If they were trying to just kind of like, you know, I think the signs are there that they are going to continue forward with their original plan of, we're going to try to give you a really compelling Aquaman, a really compelling Wonder Woman, really get you to love these characters, and then there'll be some sort of connectivity. I really that's what I believe.
Okay, so and there's another issue which we've discussed before, and we'll bring up now for the folks watching is you can't be filmmaker driven and have a shared universe. It does not jibe with each other. It
that
has
is
to be
the part where I join you in like the negative Nancy area, where I'm like, you know, they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. They want to be filmmaker driven, but they also want to have the shared concept. I'm not sure you can do that, because if you're going to tell your directors, listen, take these characters and let your imagination run wild, but you have to help us set up this other movie, it's a problem. So I am very intrigued to see how they're going to do that. Lots of, you know, so far the only companies that have been able to make the shared universe concept work is really just Marvel Studios, and they shifted to the TV model. They shifted to the producer-driven, not the filmmaker-driven model. Yeah. So I am quite skeptical that it's going to work. I think it can. I'm trying to be optimistic, but it is dodgy. Because what happens if Matt Reeves says, like, okay, I'm making this movie, and at the end of it, you know, he's going to kill the Joker. And then Jeff Johns is like, oh, no, but we kind of need the Joker around for Legion of Doom. Yeah. Who's going to win that fight? You know what I mean? So I don't know how that's going to work with the filmmaker-driven and the shared universe concept together. That
goes back to my issue with Flashpoint being used as a reboot. I think again, I'm going to use the word, there's some stink on the Justice League concept, whether it's because of Zack Snyder's aesthetic from Batman v Superman or whatever. And also the whole Legion of Doom thing, which I'm still perplexed as to why they decided at the last minute, literally. I mean, yes, they had this scene shot under Snyder. Okay, I know that, but it was not planned to be in the release. It was put in right before they screened it in London at the press junket, and then they kept it in there for the theatrical release. It was not in the script. And it goes to me. It's like they never learn. They never learn. It's like going to Comic-Con and trotting out all these directors of the DCU, and who are left? Patty Jenkins and James Wan. The rest.
Well, I'm going to tell you why they did it.
Because it's pandering to fans.
Pandering to fans, but also Warner Brothers made $5 billion this year. Yeah. They knew that they were going to press on no matter what this movie did. I really, truly believe that. They're feeling confident. They knew that that they were going to have to wash their hands of this Justice League thing, but they are prepared to just push forward. That's why I think they did it.
But they've got to stop. It's got them into trouble. I mean, look where we're at now.
I know.
It's the same thing as announcing all these films and these release dates.
Yeah, no,
a bunch of those films are never going to get made.
I know.
But there are fans who believe in their heart of hearts that all those fans will believe all those films are going to get made. There's fans who believe there's nothing wrong with DC on film right now. Everything is fine. There's fans who think Affleck is still going to play Batman for the next 10 years. Yeah. Speaking of which, the piece also mentions that there's a role for him in the Flashpoint movie, and that's true. There's a role for him. There's a role for Superman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman and probably Cyborg as well. But we know that dude is like got one foot out the door if he doesn't have two right now. So does he sit around and wait 2-3 years to do and come back and play Batman and
You see,
in Flashpoint, and then you got Reeves working on his thing, which again the piece said that he wanted to have his own actor.
Well, you know what? There's a lot to say about that. There's a lot to say about that. So let me try to collate the points. So first of all, do I think he's going to do it? Yes. I think as soon as I read that, my mind instantly went back to those quotes he had right before the film came out about trying to find his cool way to segue out of the role. I think the Flashpoint thing is, quote unquote, the cool segue. Two, I think Affleck, you know, he, for everything that's been going on in his personal life, he knows how to play the Hollywood system, and he knows that you need Warner Brothers on your side. He knows how not to burn bridges and how to do right by your peers in the industry. So as much as he'd probably love to just get the hell out of there, he knows he owes them a proper final way out. So I don't think he'd be like, all right, screw you guys, I'm out of here. You know, he promised them X amount of appearances. He's going to honor that commitment because he doesn't want to just suddenly leave Warner Brothers on bad terms. You know, they've been very good to him and very patient with him over the years. So he can't just give them the middle finger. And the last bit is with regard to how he'll appear in Flashpoint and with regard to how much of a shared universe concept that film will have. What if they downplay it? What if they downplay how interconnected it all is, make it mainly focused on the Flash, and you treat like Batman's screen time in it almost like it was in Suicide Squad, where it's a glorified cameo? You know, I feel like that could be a way to sidestep any fatigue people will have in 2020 about, these guys again. You know, if you really push the film as an Ezra Miller film, but you have a couple of glorified cameos, I think that could be a way to try to sidestep the stink from Justice League. What do you think of that?
Oh, I think this stink is awful stinky. I just, you know, I will say this about Rick Shue, and he comes from the restaurant world, you know, and business, and he's makes a lot of analogies. Like you can't serve the same dish if the dish isn't good and no one's buying it, you know, and we're kind of there. And even if you wait a year, you know, and bring out that same dish that no one liked, you know, it's still the same dish that no one's buying that no one liked, you know. I think there's some truth in that. I'm at the point where I think, look, make all the DC movies you want. Make all that you want. Make them good. Make good movies with good filmmakers. But don't worry about getting the gang together at the end, because then you start getting into, we got to set up stuff. We got to use Wonder Woman 2 to sprinkle little seeds here, and Aquaman, James Wan, you mind sprinkling little seeds there? I don't know if Reeves wants to do that. You know, he played hardball to accept the job, to take that gig. Yeah. Yes. And does he want any of that stuff? Does he want his Batman in that world to be? Does he want to use the same Alfred, the same Commissioner Gordon that we saw in BVS and Justice League combined? You know, Jeremy Irons and J.K. Simmons playing those roles. I don't know. I would suspect maybe not. Yeah. Because he wants his own Batman. You know.
But see, to also sort of quote Rick Shue. See, Rick, you're here in spirit, my friend.
Yeah.
You know, he made a great point on one of his vlogs a couple weeks ago, where he did this solo video and he mentioned about, like, you know, if Justice League, had Aquaman not already been shot, it would never happen.
I believe that.
Because basically, had they actually gone film by film, based on Justice League's opening at $93.8 million, there would never be an Aquaman movie. Yeah. But conversely, I think that's proof that they are too invested into this shared world now to suddenly break all ties. So they're going to try their best to navigate the two. Because we've already got Aquaman coming. It's already in the can. They're already officially promoting it. We know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's going to be a Wonder Woman 2. So when 2 out of the 6 core Justice League members are already have movies on the horizon, I think they kind of... they kind of have no choice. They're going to proceed, and they're going to try to keep some of the building blocks, but they're just going to do the thing where they loosen how connected they are.
Yeah, you can proceed with those. I mean, I said in that piece about Flashpoint, which I think was a terrible idea to reboot. If that's what they're thinking, is that you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
You know, you can make Aquaman. Aquaman doesn't have to mention Justice League at all. It can be entirely its own thing. And someone, would argue, well, what if it's a success? What do you do then? You make another you make another Aquaman film. You don't say, oh, let's pair him up with Booster Gold or whoever.
Yeah.
So what I was being smart, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
You make. What if Wonder Woman 2 is great? Make Wonder Woman 3.
Yeah.
Set it in flipping World War II this time. I mean, she can end up. She doesn't have to be. They say that Wonder Woman 2 is going to be set 70s, 80s Cold War stuff.
Yeah.
So that's all before Justice League and BVS and all that. So, I'll say this, you're more optimistic. I don't think it can work. I think they need to just keep making movies and don't worry about trying to get the gang together and doing Flashpoint and doing the Justice League 2. But we both want good DC films.
Yes.
And it's going to be interesting to see what they do over these next few years. No matter what, it's interesting.
And can I share something with you that also involves a shameful admission?
Yes.
So I saw Justice League again the other night.
Okay.
And I gotta tell you, I enjoyed it. Yeah. I don't know. I know it's not a good movie. I know it's not a complete film. I know it has a myriad of issues, but you know what? It was enjoyable. And what's interesting to me is I've been having a lot of conversations with people on Twitter lately of all different creed of fan. And something I've noticed is a lot of people who are not as intense and within our little bubble about all this stuff, where this is what we live and breathe, and we know all the ins and outs and the behind the scenes drama and this and that. A lot of people who are out of that bubble really enjoyed the movie. And I wonder if Warner Brothers has sort of kept their finger on the pulse of that. If they know that general audiences are actually somewhat high on what they saw. Yes, we had a hard time selling it to general audiences because of X, Y, and Z, because of it came from Batman v Superman. But the people who actually showed up had a good time. And the people who didn't like it were the ones who were going to see it anyway, who are going to see any of these DC movies anyway. Because let's be real, Bill. As much crap as you're talking right now about Flashpoint, you're going to be there to see that.
Oh, yeah, I'll be there.
And that's my point. Yeah. The studio, Warner Brothers, knows that all of us hardcore fans, even the ones who are bitching and moaning, even the ones who are as skeptical as possible, they're going to get our money. They're interested in the general audience. I feel like you know what I mean? So in their mind, they're like, if we can just sell these movies right and give the general audiences a compelling reason to come out to the theater, the way we did with Wonder Woman, all will be forgiven in a few years' time. That seems to be their outlook, and I think there's something to it. But maybe I'm just, I'm high on fairy dust and I'm too chipper about this stuff.
Christmas time.
But
You're in a good mood. Yeah.
But I really think so. I really think they're not worried about us, and I've been saying that for years. They're not worried about us because they're getting our money no matter what.
Yeah, they're not. They're not worried about us.
Audience, and general audience members gave it a B+, which is a pretty good cinema score. And I think they think that they're going to be fine. We'll see if that's actually true.
The ones who actually came out and saw it. I will counter and say people didn't come out to see it. They don't care. Why would they care about a Justice League 2 or a Flashpoint film?
I kind of like that you and I see eye to eye in a lot of different things, but there are a few key areas where we sort of diverge. So let's see in a couple years how this plays out. Will they be able to rebuild the goodwill towards DC films again? Or is Justice League, did it just sink the ship? Are they just shuffling furniture on the Titanic as it sinks?
Exactly.
So we'll see. But I have a feeling it's sinking right now, but they're going to be able to level off a little bit.
Okay. All right, man. All right. Fair enough. All right, let's plug some stuff. Go ahead, man.
Oh, yes. So you can find me on the Twitter at I_am_MFR. I'm known to answer all kinds of questions and be very chatty with anyone who wants to speak with me on there. You can go to elfanboy.com, and that'll be like your gateway to all things me in terms of, I have a podcast that's available on all the different podcast apps called the El Fanboy Podcast. I also do my own vlogs, and I have my YouTube channel and all that sort of stuff. So if you go to elfanboy.com, you'll see columns by me, scoops by me, and then it'll be able to link you to everything else that I do. So that's my
Very
plug.
good. All right, so you can find everything under elfanboy.com.
Correct.
Find it all there. All right. Follow me on Twitter at Batman on Film. Thanks for listening to the Batman on Film vlog number 4. Mm-hmm. Gotten a lot of positive feedback. People like videos. They like, for some reason, they like the video. I guess so. They like the video stuff. So we're going to do more. Even though I got to get Rick on there every once in a while, but whatever, we'll make it happen. So, all right, Rick, come on now. Sorry, it's cool.
Superman, as I call him. Sorry.
All right then. So for Mario, I'm Bill. We'll catch you next time.
What about the line? We got to do the line at the end.
Let's do
Come
the
on
line.
now.
Yes. All right. Okay.
It's your show.
Batman on Film, authoritative, definitive,
Dadgum original.